location bordering Iraq and Syria, Turkey has played a key role in the fight.
Mr. Secretary, thank you. Do you believe that Ukraine can still win this war, and do you believe that they will need to ultimately concede some territory in order to get to the negotiating table and bring this to an end?
I trust, and I am fully confident in, the political leadership in Ukraine. It's for them to make those hard decisions, to make those difficult assessments. It's for us to support them. So they are in the best possible decision or position when negotiations starts, because most wars, also most likely this war, will at some stage end at the negotiating table. So it's not for us to decide or to have strong opinions on what Ukraine should accept or not accept. It's for us to support them in upholding the right for self-defense, a right which is enshrined in the UN Charter. Sorry. Thank
you very much. Is there any talk within NATO? Is there any talk within NATO of organising some sort of naval escort for ships to be able to go in and out carrying grain from Ukraine? Is that a topic of discussion?
What we see now is the global repercussions of this war on energy prices and on food prices. And this is because of Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine. The problems with getting grain out of Ukraine is not caused by our sanctions. It's caused by Russia's war, President Putin's war against Ukraine. And therefore the easiest way to get more grain out and to reduce the pressure on food prices is for President Putin to end the war and to stop the blockade and to allow Ukraine to export grain. As long as that's not the case, I welcome the effort by different countries, including NATO allies, also in close coordination with the UN, to look for ways to get more grain out, partly by land or on land with on road and trains, but also looking at the possibility of getting some grain out by ship. I welcome those efforts, and that's my main message today. Sorry, over there.
Pope Francis could help mediate an end to the war in Ukraine?
Sorry?
Do you believe Pope Francis could help mediate an end to the war in Ukraine?
I'll not speculate about that. I think the main thing we need to say is that we support Ukraine, both on the battlefield with support from NATO allies and partners, but also when they make the judgments on what kind of negotiations they are ready to engage in. Then, yeah.
Could you be more specific about your meeting with President Biden now? What are the next steps of the US and NATO combined to stop the current Russian momentum and the gains they are steadily making on the battleground?
Well, the United States is leading the efforts to provide support to Ukraine. And NATO allies and the United States are providing an unprecedented level of military support. This is making a difference on the battlefield every day. And we need to sustain that support. We need to be prepared for long haul. And that has been a message from the United States, from other NATO allies and partners. We also need to realize that this is partly about the military support, but it's also about the unprecedented level of economic sanctions, and then, of course, economic support, humanitarian support, and many other types of support. NATO's responsibility is to help and support Ukraine in upholding the right for self-defense. At the same time, NATO also has a responsibility to prevent this war from escalating, to become a full-fledged war between Russia and NATO. That will cause even more death, even more destruction, even more damage. And that's the reason why we have made it clear that NATO is not part to the conflict. We provide support to Ukraine, but we're not part of the conflict. We support Ukraine to defend themselves. And the reason why NATO and NATO allies have deployed more troops in the eastern part of the lines to remove any room for miscalculation or misunderstanding in Moscow about our readiness to protect and defend all allies. This is deterrence. That's not to provoke a conflict, but it's to prevent a conflict, to prevent escalation. Then I think it's fair now to do this one. Yeah.
I'd like to see the U.S. play a greater role mediating between Turkey and Sweden and Finland. And separately, do you think it would be helpful for the U.S. to sell Ukraine armed drones capable of firing missiles?
Sorry, the last question was?
Do you think it would would be helpful for the U.S. to sell Ukraine armed drones capable of firing missiles?
So the United States and also all the NATO allies and partners are now delivering a wide range of different military capabilities, equipment to Ukraine, also modern systems, and that's extremely important. I will not go into the specific systems, but it has been publicly announced some of the latest deliveries, including rocket systems with longer range and higher precision. This adds to the effort of all allies to help support Ukraine. This is, of course, about supporting and helping Ukraine, but it's also about preventing Russia and President Putin to be rewarded for his brutal military action against Ukraine. So we need to ensure that Ukraine prevails as an independent, sovereign, democratic nation in Europe, and that President Putin is not rewarded for his aggressive actions. That's the reason why we provide support to Ukraine.
I'd like to see the U.S. play a greater role mediating.
Well, of course, all NATO allies consult on these issues. We discussed it with the President, with the Vice President and National Security Advisor in our meeting today. But this is about Finland and Sweden joining NATO, and therefore, of course, NATO also facilitate and work with those two applicant countries and Turkey to find a way forward.
Then, sorry, to the question about the long-range and the medium-range missiles is that Russia says that's a provocation.
I have to go over there.
And how much of a concern is that this will actually be an escalation? Sorry. Are you afraid to answer that question, sir?